Hello all, welcome back to my living room and welcome back to A Peek in Holy Meadows. And today I wanted to do something that I haven't done before. I kind of just wanted to have like an open conversation. I don't have any notes prepared. I kind of just have this topic that I've been thinking about for a really long time. I think I've always thought about this, but recently I've articulated this idea clearly. And this is the idea of individuality, authenticity, and really embracing your true nature. I would say I really gained a sense of identity and who I was and confidence in that literally just this year. But I've definitely been intentionally like searching for who I am, what I like to do, those certain like niches or things that actually define who I am. And I think before this journey started of really trying to understand who I am, find myself and all that, I was very easily influenced and swayed. I want to say like from maybe like 8 to 18, so for 10 years, I was very lost and confused about who I was. I didn't see a lot of people who looked like me, who thought like me, who kind of represented the same values and ways that I carried myself. And because I didn't see any of what I saw, I thought that I was wrong. I thought that the things that I like to do or my natural inclinations or how I like to present myself, I thought those things were incorrect because no one else was doing them. And when they were being represented, I felt like my interest and my hobbies and who I was and all that stuff, and just like physical traits as well, like certain things that aren't represented in the media, like Black women and different curl types, different facial features and all that stuff. I didn't really see that represented, so I tried very hard for those 10 years to really change and mold myself to fit the image that was being promoted. However, I was miserable. I think the first time I remember being like depressed or like really upset about something that I couldn't change or not being able to fit into that mold was 11, when I transitioned from being in like a private school and going into public school. I feel like that like big introduction to like kind of what reality is, because private school, there's no reality.
Baby, I'm not even here. I'm a hallucination.
It was very jarring, and I realized how much like catching up I had to do with all like the trends and like what was around me, but also how much I did not fit into the molds that were, being promoted. I think with that kind of baggage, like in hindsight, I think today when I try to deny myself, it's very indicative that I don't feel comfortable or I don't feel seen or I don't feel represented. The biggest thing when it comes to exploring your identity and becoming more authentic and genuine and really coming from a space of doing things that you like, I think it's all about acceptance and it's all about knowing yourself. I think a very important thing that people should do to kind of get a greater sense of like who they are and their natural inclinations, I think it's really important to go back to childhood. And I think it's really important to see how you acted, like what behaviors did you do, what hobbies did you do, how were you like, what did you like to eat, who were your friends, what does your family remember you as being. Thinking back to the seeds, where the seeds were planted and how they grew before you kind of just knocked them off and kicked them because of like the societal pressure. I think that is very important. I think that is kind of like the step one, like kind of doing some inner child work or shadow work and just sitting and thinking about, damn, what did I do before society imprinted on me? Like, what did I naturally lean towards? And I think once I kind of started refamiliarizing myself with who I was as a little kid, it was kind of a process of unlearning so much. I would say my journey to like really knowing who I am and exploring that side of me really began during lockdown, like most people, in 2020, like in March, April. And I really feel like from that point, I've just been fucking unwriting everything. Like, I feel like I've been undoing more than years. I feel like I've been doing centuries of cleansing and healing and rewriting and rewiring and removing because of how pervasive some of these like societal beliefs are deeply ingrained in me. And it's very crazy to see how these little things that you may see in movies or TV shows can really get into your subconscious and dictate how you act and all those things. So I think a growing sense of awareness, watching your mind and like really noticing when I'm trying to conform or when I'm trying to please others. I think authenticity and individuality in the sense of not being super overly independent and like not wanting to build community, but independent as in like individual, like you are your own person, you are made up of your own elements. You of course are going to take influence from everyone around you, and that's what also makes you you. But for me, when I think about that, I think it's so important to know who you are, know what you like. So when you do go out into the world and interact with things and learn new information and get introduced to all this new stuff, you kind of have a place where you can come back and connect the ideas back to what you like, applying everything you learn or gather to the thing that you define yourself as. I also think that self-definition can get very tricky because sometimes you can unintentionally box yourself in when you don't mean to, or you feel like because you're defined this way, you can't do that. And Grace is so amazing Grace, right? I think it's super important to be patient with yourself and to be aware that you are not perfect, especially if you're going from being super influenced by what you see on media or your friends or your family. To bring this kind of full circle, because I don't know how long I've been talking, I feel like my individuality and my search to kind of being more authentic and genuine and genuinely representing myself the way that I want to without influence from everyone, I think it's so vital to living a good life. I don't think that even as I share my experience or share this advice, whatever you want to call it, as we have this one-sided conversation, I genuinely don't want like people to see others living a good life and being like, okay, I want to do everything this person is doing because that's gonna make me happy. It's all about not looking at what other people have or what other people embody or what other people do and kind of like envying it or wanting to do it exactly like they do it. I think a really crucial foundational part of this lifetime, and I also think if you figure out this crucial foundational part sooner, your life is gonna be way easier. But I think you really need to know know yourself. You need to know what you don't like, what you like, you know, stuff like that, what you're willing to accept in certain situations, how you tend to feel all the time, what you like to do, what interests you, what you like to read about, what you like to watch. I think knowing those little things that may seem mundane or that we kind of don't really consider because we're in the throes of life, I think when we do consider those, it kind of changes the trajectory of what we do. As I started to get to know myself, I started questioning a lot of things that I did out of habit or that I did in my daily life, and I started being very like skeptical, very not untrustworthy, but very like, well, why do I like this? Well, why don't I like this? Well, why don't you want to do that? Well, why do I want to do that? Asking questions that you would ask someone like on a first date or when you first get to know them to yourself kind of constantly is going to kind of catch you up to where you actually are. And I think another important part of authenticity and being genuine is emotions. But I think being outspoken and speaking up for yourself really makes a difference in how you feel about yourself and what you know about yourself. I feel like when we embody our own individual uniqueness, when we consider where we've been, our story, and where we're going, I think it's so important to like really sit with the idea that no one else has experienced anything you have experienced. They may have experienced similar events, but not in the chronology you have, or not in the time period you have, or not in the way you have. And I think really recognizing what you already embody and what you already have is immensely beneficial. To know your strengths and your weaknesses will allow you to enter more spaces or enter more interest or try new things with kind of more confidence. I think when we don't have that sense of identity, we spend so much time just going out in the world or going back to the past or going to other people's lives, trying to take these elements to make sense of who we are, when in reality all we need to do is just sit with ourselves and really think, what have I been through? What do I actually genuinely like? Even if you can only think of like 3 things that you genuinely like, you genuinely care for, that's more than nothing. You can totally build off that, and it's a lifelong process. Some people don't change as much as I do. I change a lot. I get new information and I mold. So I think when we have the base understanding of who we are and we are aware of the fact that it's going to change and it's going to morph, we find more peace in ourselves, but also we have a clearer path. I think that's all I have to share about kind of like my musings and like my thoughts on individuality and why knowing thyself is so important. I hope to kind of have provoked some not existential thoughts, but some more introspective thoughts or questions that you have for yourself. And I hope that you become closer to your higher self, your most authentic self, the realest version of you. And I hope this conversation was entertaining. Yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.